We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is tied. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Yo, this is Fling with DFS Army doing a Week 1 cash lineup review. Let's do it. All right, we like to look back at our process, see what's working, what we need to change. If something's working, obviously we'll stick to it. If we have a leak in our game, then, we'll look at our process to maybe make some changes. So right off the bat, let's start with some DFS Army wins. These were some of the comments that I got in Discord from some of our members who cashed. Cash games, thanks. Really good ROI. Some of that was in the mini max, some in cash, so proper bankroll management. Good stuff with cash sheet. You can see a lot of double ups. You want to play about 80% of your bankroll in cash games. So that is important. And as far as bankroll management, building that bankroll, avoiding risk of ruin. And of course, you could become a DFS Army VIP to get access to all the things we're about to go over: the coaches' notes, the chalkboard, the cheat sheets, the optimizer that you can even help use set your cash lineup. So I will put a link in the description of the video for 10% off my VIP subscription. You're just going to use code FantasyFling for that 10% off. So let's go ahead and kind of start with looking at the chalkboard. Now, normally on the site, you can go to this tab here and there's a chalkboard, but it's already set up for next week. So just want to go through the process of typically how we're going to build our cash lineup. So one thing that people kind of need to get familiarized with, and you are not trying to beat the entire field. Your only chalk is the good plays of the slate. You don't need to get off that chalk. You could do that in tournaments. But you also want players that don't have a lot of variance. So that's something to keep in mind when you're building your entire lineup. Oftentimes I'll get questions, do I play this guy or this guy? Well, what is the volume going to look like for player A versus player B? How does player A versus player B project? If, player B is going to have one game where he's going to score 10 to 15 points, but he's going to have a lot of games where he's going to score 2 to 3 points, that is not a player you want in your lineup. You want to go with player A, who's going to maybe average like 8 points, but, he'll have that game where he'll have like 15 to 20. So you want the least amount of variance. Now, right away, you kind of go to the ownership projections, and that'll tell you what a lot of the good plays are. Rashad White, Alvin Kamara connect to have a lot of ownership. They also, if you look at their projections, they project well in their matchups. So those are players that we want to get in our lineup. Same thing, Tyreek Hill. Now, obviously, he was a top end play on the slate. When we go to my cheat sheet, you're going to see that I had him as a core play. Also had Andre Yoshivas as well as a core play, but he was essentially a free square. So that is something that you also have to keep in mind in cash games too. When people are looking to fade that chalk, we have a 3K player here who is being elevated because T. Higgins was out. So he was going to get targets at 3K. He was kind of just a free square that you can plug into your lineup and and now you can pay up at other spots, and not have to look for like a pay down option at running back, for example. So this is a chalk that we were willing to eat because of the elevated volume. We knew he was going to be high owned, so we had a safety net there. He did fail. He didn't do well, but he was only 3K. So that safety net of the ownership is seriously what saved you. But yeah, these were a couple of the week I was on to Josh Allen, but once we saw that his ownership was going to be as low as it was, he now becomes risky because if Josh Allen doesn't have, one of his Josh Allen games and Anthony Richardson has a great game, which he did, he ended up with 27 total points. Now you're risking not hitting the cash line. So you could have hit the cash line, of course, with Josh Allen, but in all honesty, Anthony Richardson was a little bit of a better play. The way he finished, 27 points at 6,300 versus 32 points at 8K. So much better for your cash lineup. And he had that projected ownership that we are looking for. So I'm actually going to get into my cash lineup real quick. And, then we're going to go to the cheat sheet. So this is a different process for me because if you watch my cash video, we actually back tested the whole 2023 season to where we use the optimizer to see if we can have a cash lineup using the optimizer every week that would profit on the season. Now, one of the leaks in my game is, that I'm realizing is I've never done that. I had never used the optimizer to do cash. So I did that first thing Sunday morning, and I didn't do it like right before lock or, an hour before lock and go back, something that I will do going forward because it gave me a different cash lineup very early Sunday morning versus hour before lock by using the optimizer. So that's something on the optimizer to do your cash lineups. Go ahead and reserve those entries, but come back like an hour before lock and run it again because the projections, everything updates, and it's going to give you a different lineup. So you could see my cash lineup here. It's similar, but there were a couple differences and it didn't cash. So this one, I chose Rashad White and Kenneth Walker versus Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker. So really not much of a difference there. But yeah, it gave me Tyreek Hill. It gave me Drake London, Oshivas, Ingram, and Palmer. So overall, it was good. But this range, just these three players, London, Ingram, and Palmer, just crushed me. Now, Palmer did have he was wide open for a touchdown, and Herbert missed him. So, touchdown variance, whatever you want to call it. Ingram, this is kind of why we want to look to pay down at tight end because it's high variance, and you paid 5K for a tight end who got 1 point. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. Try to get the cheap tight end versus the pay up option. And then, yeah, Drake London, very disappointing. Really thought he would do better. The Atlanta offense would just overall look terrible. Just probably some bad variance here, but this is the round one of the optimal DSUS, the domination station versus Fling. This was my hand-built lineup. I actually built this Friday night, and I liked it. And I was like, well, let's do a little test. Let's see what my hand-built does versus the optimal. And my hand-built lineup beat it by about 21 points. So pretty good stuff. Now, the cash line we're going to see was 126.98. So even the optimal was very close, just barely missed it. But yeah, this was my hand build. I had Richardson, Kamara, White, Hill, Kirk, and Kirk was really the only spot that killed me in this cash lineup and still did well. You're not going to get every spot right most weeks. But yeah, Oshivas, he was, again, when we say free square, he was 65% owned. So you're only trying to beat half the field, right? And he got 5 points and he's 3K. So that's terrible for tournaments, but it's fine for cash games. You get a 5-point player who's only 3K. Kyle Pitts, I liked the pay down a little bit from Ingram, and so went down to Pitts, and that it was able to get me Godwin, who I liked better than Palmer. So yeah, overall, this was a good hand-built lineup. Didn't get there with the optimal, but we will certainly look to revisit that. And in fact, I'm going to show you here in a second how the back test was different because the back test will show it like what the final settings were. So the cash sheet, if you look at my cash sheet, the process was really there to hit the cash line. We identified Richardson as the high end play. This is a guy that averaged 23 points per game last year in his 3 full starts before he got hurt. So we liked him at the ownership. It made sense. I liked Bijan. He didn't have a great game, but he also wasn't terrible. But as you can see, he didn't get into my cash lineup anyway. So um, it wasn't good enough for cash if you got if you were on the right wide receivers. But yeah, Kenneth Walker, Rashad White, Kamara, and Bijan, those were really the top guys. Again, I identified Tyreek Hill as a core play. If you were playing Tyreek Hill, you weren't playing CeeDee Lamb, you weren't playing Justin Jefferson. Thought they were both viable, but really the idea here is you want to play the core plays and build your lineup accordingly. So Tyreek Hill was far and away the best play. He always smashes in week 1. And then Andre Yoshibas was that free square. Of course, he could with that you get guys like London or Pittman into your lineup as well. And then these were the tight end plays. Pitts being obviously the better pay down option. And then really any of these defenses would have been certainly good enough. I believe Texans got 4 points. The Seahawks got like 9 points. So lots of paths to hitting the cash line via the chalkboard and the cash cheat sheet. So when I say the process that we use at DFS Army for the optimizer, now some people, and the reason why I know this was a leak in my game is because there were subscribers who told me that they used the optimal and they cashed this week. So I can tell that they did it. They ran it later than I did. So the process that we discovered through back testing, you don't want double tight end, so we zero out the tight end. We disallow more than one pass catcher from the same team unless using the QB from that team. We're only going to use one lineup because we're only trying to cash one lineup. It's not like a tournament where you can have a bunch of lineups that fill, but if you have that one that wins, you're great. This lineup needs a cash because it's cash game, and you're really just going to play one optimal. So we put that to one lineups. We got disallows. Now, the difference here, and I want to go the reason how this works. So we're going to hit Tyreek Hill. He's our core play. So we put an Adore on him. You could put an Adore on Yoshibas as well, but I'm pretty sure he's going to make it to the lineup. And then we're going to go to our quarterback. And this is a very important piece in backtesting. We identify a guy who projects well on the slate, who has a high floor and is getting a good amount of ownership, and we're going to lock them in. So that was Anthony Richardson. So we're not putting a love on him. We're locking him in. And then we hit optimize. And here we go. So you see, this was more or less the lineup that I had, with the exception of DK Metcalf over Drake London and Chris Godwin and Kyle Pitts. So it was really kind of that 3 for 3. But this is a lineup 144.98 that would have cashed. My hand built was 143.18. So I think that's going to do it. That's going to do it for this week's cash and review. Like I said, if you guys want to give DFS Army a try, right now you can do 10% off a VIP subscription. Use code FantasyFling. The link will be in the video description. And we'll see y'all next week. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you like this kind of content, hit that like button. Let us know. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we got a lot of content coming your way. Showdown breakdowns, which had so many takedowns already for the showdowns. Tournament tactics. We got the game plan with Geek and John's Sensational. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That's going to do it. We will see you next week.